Welcome to the Scaling Japan podcast. I'm your host, Tyson Bettino, and on today's episode, we have Rina Sakuraba. She is the CEO of Sango, which offers coaching services specializing in leadership development, organizational culture transformation, and consulting to design and, more importantly, help you implement to make your corporate mission, vision, and values a reality. I know Rena very well as she helped one of the companies I co-founded to do exactly that. So Rena helped us out as our CHRO at OneCoin English, but she also served as a CHRO for GE Health Japan. And she really knows what she's talking about. And she's been a fundamental part of my growth as well as an executive. So it's really great to have you on a second time, Rena. And could you please give a self-introduction?
Thank you, Tyson, for the luxurious introduction. I'm having a great day, thanks to you. And this happens to be the morning. So it's lovely to start off the morning together with you. Um, yes, as Tyson said, I left corporate because I was so curious about the missing conversations that should have happened among the stakeholders at the company. And many of you would agree with me that there are lots of elephants in the room that cannot be said out loud. And I was one of them because of the expectations from other people, because of the relationship that you have internally, because of the pressure, and because of the assessments of other people. So there's so many walls to prevent to have missing conversations. And I realized those missing conversation is going to impact a lot of people when it comes to a missing conversation with people with authorities in the room. So I decided to leave corporate and decided to found my own company so that I could encourage people and equip people to have missing conversation with courage and vulnerability and authenticity. So that's how I founded my company about 5 years ago. So thank you for having me again.
Before we start, here's a quick introduction to myself, your host. I'm the CEO of Smart Start Japan. We support setting up a company and back office in Japan. We also provide affordable advisory on raising capital, IPO, and other finance topics. I also run Scaling Your Company that provides courses and sales advisory and digital marketing agency services for the Japan market. If you need help, feel free to reach out.
Awesome. And so with your coaching agency or firm, one of the unique points is you do ontological coaching.
Mm-hmm.
And I think you're probably one of the first in Japan to introduce this method, which has worked overseas. But could you, before we dive into our topic of Ne-mawashi, I think it's also important to hear about why, let's say, ontological coaching is so important and resonates with you, because I think that'll kind of give us some context for understanding our conversation later about Ne-mawashi and in the next episode, Hone and Tatemae.
Oh, thank you so much, Tyson. It's really relevant deeply inside of me. So let me explain my version of understanding. So I came across with ontological coaching about 4 years ago or 4 or 5 years ago, when my being as a human being was not going anywhere. I was stuck. So I felt that every time that I was doing different actions, which is a doing, I felt stuck everywhere. So I did plan A and then I got stuck. So I tried plan B and then I could go a little bit further away and then I got stuck again. And then I did plan C and then I go, okay, well, even shorter amount of the other miles. So there's so many doings that you are concentrated on trying new things and choosing different options of actions. And at some point of time, it used to work like that. You change the strategies and you change your tactics, and it was working before. Back then, I felt that none of it was working fundamentally. So I came to a conclusion. It wasn't about the actions. It was about myself as a being. Myself was seeing things in a pattern, in a certain way, and I couldn't really have a breakthrough by myself. So I decided to go to ontological coaching schools because they were talking very interesting and fundamental thing about the being, to tap on the being of a person. How do you help as a coach to shift that being inside of that person, to have different lenses to see the world? So with the different lenses to see the world, there will be other options of actions that you never thought of. So you're blinded to certain things. Anyone can be blinded because we are all biased beings. So ontological coaches help the other client to expand the being as an observer of a client so that they can find other options and take another different actions to get the different results. I thought that was powerful. And that was so fundamental, not only in a workplace, but being is everywhere, even in a personal life. Any relationship and a human being come together to do any actions together. So human being and being aspects of it, you will never get out of any relationship, to be honest. So I thought that was really powerful. And the reason why I wanted to bring this to Japan was to talk about what we're going to talk about, Ne-mawashi and then honne to tatemae, which are the Japanese languages of how do you keep a different relationship. And these two concepts are really embedded into the value of being among the Japanese people. And Japanese people tend to really value the being of the person rather than actions and what right actions that you should have taken or wrong actions. Rather, they talk about the being and they really value that to earn respect and give respect to each other. So I thought that really fits nicely into a cultural nuance of Japan market. So that's why I decided to bring this to Japan.
Excellent. And I think one thing you did that really helped at One Coin English, I think you could tell when someone had something to say, but they weren't saying it for some reason. And then in our, in our board executive meetings or leadership meetings, you would ask, like, seems like you would like to say something. What would you like to say? So like giving permission.
Right.
When people feel like they didn't have permission or they should hold their voice.
Yes.
So to the topic of Ne-mawashi. So I guess we'll start with could you maybe define what is Ne-mawashi?
Sure. So, for those of you who are coming into Japan for business or anyone who is expanding out of Japan and have the expectations of other people to do Ne-mawashi for you, whatever it is, here is the language called Ne-mawashi in Japan. So Ne-mawashi comes from the language and of origin of two words, and one is ne is root, and the mawashi is that going around. So basically, that the root itself is about the being aspect of the human being, and mawashi going around is that making sure that you respect that person's being beforehand of making decisions. So it's a ground making. So making sure that you set the ground. So anyone who is really interested in gardening or farming, and I guess that before seeding, you set the ground, you cultivate the ground, and then you nourish them and you take care of them and give some moisture. And then, you check the soil is ready to be seeded, and then you plant the seeds. And you don't just go and, just yank the soil and then put the hole and then put the seeds and then, cover it and then hoping for the harvest will come, and usually it doesn't really happen, right? So usually that I talk about Japanese culture with the expressions around farming, because we use lots of expressions from farming. We rent it from the concept of farming. So Ne-mawashi is one of them. So really setting the ground, nourishing the ground so that once the seeds are planted, everything is ready. So they don't get surprised. and people are ready. So we are people, here just to say yes and have a consensus for the last time to move forward. So that's what Ne-mawashi is all about. And it's a really big part of doing business in Japan.
Yeah, and this will, for anyone doing corporate sales, understanding the concept of Ne-mawashi will be absolutely critical for you to get sales and maintain clients in Japan. And for me, I can tell, so I get a lot of inquiries from companies who want to do market entry. And one of my filters is to decide to work with a company is that are they willing to do Ne-mawashi or not? And I think, in other countries, you have I think there may not be a specific term for it, but in corporate sales, there's a lot of stakeholders. You need to talk to a lot of different stakeholders, really understand the organization deeply on how they operate as a unit, an organized, or as a being in a way. And this is the Japanese form. So we'll probably go in a little bit into maybe some differences, but there is a similar concept overseas, but Ne-mawashi it's good to know this term and also just the process because one of the challenges that I'm facing with one of my clients is that now that they have to help their Japanese counterpart, they have to help their Japanese champion in the company that they're selling to actually understand Ne-mawashi. So
Mm.
the foreigner is actually having to go and teach the Japanese person. And so by using the term Ne-mawashi, I think it's really key for actually teaching a Japanese person because you will have to teach a Japanese person how to do Ne-mawashi. And it's in my sales advisory, I would say navigating around Ne-mawashi is probably a top three topic, like with that we talk about with every client. So I think one is how to get leads. And then the second one is Ne-mawashi is probably the number one, probably the second one that comes up.
Wow. Look, in my definition, nemawashi comes out as a specific word in Japanese culture. So that's why when I think about doing a similar thing in other culture, they actually do. There isn't just a word for it. And some people call it grounding, some people call it a relationship building, and um, pre-meeting. And there's so many languages similar to that in English, even. And in other languages, unfortunately, I failed Spanish, so I cannot really talk about Spanish or German, to be exact. But there's got to be some relationship building beforehand before making decisions and having a consensus to move forward. There's got to be some wording. So I'm sure there's some concepts, more or less around that. In Japanese culture, as I said earlier, when you asked me about why ontological coaching in Japan, why now, is because it's really more attuned to having a relationship between two human beings that's so fundamental to do anything in Japan. So trust in relationship is really weighted heavily when it comes to doing Japan. So that's why there's a specific word like ne-mawashi rather than general descriptions of doing the same thing. That's how I see it.
And one thing I would like to add before we dive deeper is that there's a document in Japan called the Lingisho. And it's actually literally a document with just has a format like, what is the problem? What is the solution? How much does it cost? Why now? And there's literally boxes where for like sometimes 10 boxes, sometimes even more for people to give a hanko to show that they approve of the contents of which is it's a way of saying it's a proposal basically, but it's a unique Japanese form. So I think understanding these terms, ne-mawashi and lingisho, is important because it'll help you communicate it with your champions, but also for you to, I think, I think by using the Japanese term, I think you actually think about it as a unique process. And I think by thinking of it as a unique process, it would definitely help you get more sales and more effectively navigate.
I agree.
Excellent. So I guess moving next is, could you talk a little bit more about, I guess, Ne-mawashi's purpose in Japanese culture as a pre-decision consultation process? I think you touched on it a little bit, but let's dive
Uh-huh.
deeper. Before we dive in, I wanted to thank today's sponsor, AIM B2B, and recommend them for anyone entering or expanding in Asia's intricate B2B market. AIM B2B is Tokyo's leading integrated marketing and PR agency. Since 2008, they've helped global brands thrive across Japan and APAC through intelligent strategies, data-driven implementation, and cultural expertise. Their proven adapt, implement, maximize framework builds trust through localized storytelling and drives measurable growth through strategic performance marketing. They're HubSpot certified, seasoned in account-based marketing, paid media, GEO, SEO, and more. Ready to expand? That's AIM B2B. Always forward. Give a shout out to Robert and the team for supporting this podcast. Now back to the show.
So when I was in a corporate at G Healthcare and the previous company Allianz, and have been working in a global environment a lot, and I worked with many different nationalities and as leaders coming into Japan as expats or local hires, whichever it is. There are some distinctions that I saw, and it's more like a pattern that some people succeeded, some people didn't, so they went home. And these leaders will be out of the job within maybe 6 to 12 months because that's the wrong way to set off a relationship. The successful ones, they listen first. So they come in and they set up a meeting. They don't really talk about their agenda at all. They say that humility is one of the things that they need to show, but I don't know anything at this point about you or what you do. And I have some knowledge about Japanese, market, and I want to just hear from you guys. I want to learn from you guys. Let me hear what's bubbling underneath, your feelings and your heart and your mind. So they have, listening ears. And then, possibly that they spend maybe 3 months at least to be in the hearing and listeners mode. And then they're very patient, and it doesn't mean that they don't have ideas. They do have some ideas. They have their agenda. That's why they're sent from the headquarters, because something is not going very well. So they have their agenda. It's just that the way they approach things, speaker first or listener first, that's the biggest distinctions that I realized. And then the second point is that how do you try to understand their customers? Because it can be internal customers, it can be external customers. The successful ones and go out there and then try to listen to the customers' voices. So they include the customers and the team as well. So they extend their listening ears to the customers. So, for example, there are leaders who were doing operations. So their internal customer was sales. So she went there and extended to the meetings of the salespeople. And then she didn't speak any Japanese, but she hired an interpreter, make sure that she tried to understand it. And then people could really see that she was making a lot of effort to really understand what's happening. So that already built lots of credibility in her. On the other hand, there was another leader, and then who went to the business meeting, I think quite randomly. I think he had an already agenda to tell the internal customer, which was sales, that they were doing unfair work when it comes to operation team. So he was really wired up with a message that you guys need to stop now. So one day, so without giving the pre-notice, he actually showed up at one of the sales meeting. And then everybody was surprised, who is this person? And then he said that he introduced, I'm a VP of, operations. I'm here to make an announcement that you guys should stop like this. and working like operations, and people just didn't like that at all. So that really embarrassed himself, but also he really embarrassed the whole team of operations. So operation team didn't really like to work with him because he embarrassed the whole team. So the second one is just to really understand the customers, not only their team, but making sure that you position yourself with the listening ears, not to be really wired up to present yourself as a messenger first.
Gotcha.
Yeah. And then the third point, when it comes to Ne-mawashi and then corporate cultural point of view, is that it gets faster to get what you want. Okay. So usually I hear from non-Japanese people that Ne-mawashi is, just an additional work, and then it takes time. When it comes to building trust, Ne-mawashi really speed things up. I'll give you an example. I myself had a very tough HR tool implementation that I knew that I would say 60% of the population didn't want to have it because they were benefiting from something else. And then we were implementing that go against it. So I knew that, 60% of the people who were union members didn't like that. So if I go ahead and then show up at the all hands meeting saying that, hey guys, this is the right tool for everybody, we're going to implement it whether you like it or not, I knew that they're going to veto to us. So what I did was to had a really grounding mini conversation with the union members, started with the other union leaders, union executives, and then I went around across the different regions, offices. So I had a small 4 to 5 people mini group session. And then surely there are people who are totally against it. There are people who are in the middle, neutral. There are people who didn't mind. So I had that conversation with the listening ears. And I had a conversation as to what is it that, they were concerned about. So having a listening ears for the concerns of other people, you can craft your offers attractive enough when it comes to decision making, when it comes to final presentation. So I had ample information and data to craft my message to really make it attractive enough for other people to say yes to my offer. So in the end, 98% of the people said yes and voted positively to the new implementation so we could make it happen. Surely that going around the country and having a conversation with them, you may consider it as troublesome and extra work. But imagine that if you go ahead, like next month, you have a timeline and you do the presentation, you get vetoed. You need to do it from a scratch again. And every time you do it, you get vetoed. So it really depends on how you see troublesome and then additional work as your definition.
Yeah, exactly. And one thing I like to say to my clients is, are you going to do the work now or later?
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
so anything goes. So you did the work beforehand. And another way of describing it is like you created the pavement to move faster afterwards.
Correct. Yes.
Yeah, I was surprised listening to that you went regionally to get buy-in. And
Yeah. And it's not really about asking them to make their mind there and then. It's a process that I was there. So showing my presence is very fundamental to Ne-mawashi. Showing your presence and then getting the people feel fully heard. So that's the second point when it comes to Ne-mawashi. So you don't have to convince other people to flip to your side. That showing your presence and then getting people feel that they were fully heard. That's all that's all needed to happen during the Ne-mawashi period. With that process, you have a sense that they will probably come in saying that, well, he showed up, she showed up to my door and then showed herself and showed themselves to explain. And then they cared. enough to listen to my side of the story. So even though I don't like it, I will support you.
I think the guest might be having the question, maybe what were some ways of setting the scene or that you're able to get people feel comfortable sharing their concerns?
Yeah, and that's a very good point to set the environment, right environment for the especially the Japanese people to articulate their honne, which is the sincere thoughts and opinion, rather than tatemae, which is the facade and fake faces, and being polite and not saying the right things. So setting the scene is there are certain ways that you can do, and one is to, I just repeat it again, just show that you're here to listen to them. You're not showing up to convince them or speak at them. And that intention needs to be clarified at the beginning of the sessions. And then you go consistently towards until the end of that session is very important. So be patient to be in the listener, and then don't switch to a speaker and then trying to convince them. And then people know that, I knew that was a tatemae, fake faces. So people have a very sensitive nose to sniff around that that's a tatemae, not the honne, and people know immediately. So make sure that you show up sincerely, and then make the intentions very clear that you're here to listen, not to present to them. So that's the first thing, to set the safe environment. The second point is that be curious. So my recommendation is to equip yourself with lots of really good coaching questions. So these days, we as Sango, we are incubating lots of leaders as coaches, and the leaders who can coach people, but not only coaching, but have a coaching conversation skills and competencies to have different conversation in sales, different conversation in conversions, different conversation in negotiation. So coaching competencies can be brought into different conversations. This is one of them in change management. So if you want to change something and then you want people's buy-in, you use coaching skills and competencies to be really curious about where they're coming from. So my second point is that get yourself equipped with really good coaching questions beforehand, in case that there's some resistance happening, and then you feel like stuck in the conversation, and then you have a list of really good coaching conversations and questions to really help you to keep going, like well, that's very interesting, tell me more about that. Where is this coming from? How does this link you back to your value system? What do you believe in most? And if we implement this tool, what do you lose? So there's so many really good coaching questions that you can help yourself to prepare beforehand. So that's the second point. The third point is that make sure that you have selected a people with a really good mixture of people in one group. So don't gather all the people who are totally vetoed. You can mix it with the people who are neutral, and then negative, and then positive, and with the right amount in one group, so that you have a variety and diversity in the group, so that they can listen to each other, even though who are veto. Listen to people's perspectives, like, well, maybe that I shouldn't be so firm no to this one. Maybe that I can loosen up a little bit. There's some perspectives, and I see that. So you can use the other people of the participants in the group to co-coach each other, peer coach each other without their intentions to coach each other. So you can mix different diversity in the group, and then having that opinion to coach each other is very crucial to create effective Ne-mawashi breakout sessions beforehand. Those are my advices.
Excellent. And so I think you're explaining before about one reasons that foreign leaders come in, speaking versus listening. In terms of Ne-mawashi, do you know any other areas of it where you find that it's hard for maybe foreign leaders, new foreign leaders even existing to kind of wrap their heads around.
Yeah, so I guess one thing that I can say that not all Japanese leaders with the Ne-mawashi competencies and go abroad and they become successful. The answer is no. Yeah. So how come? Because they have the Ne-mawashi competencies and it's gonna be working, worldwide. Um, there's a reason. So Ne-mawashi, as I said, it can take extra steps. And, at the end of the day, like you said, Tyson, you want to do the work now, you want to just lag to later. There's a fine line between being a listener and then making decisions and being the speaker. And then, put the full stop to it. So there's got to be a fine balance there. I observe that many Japanese leaders who are very equipped with Ne-mawashi, but they do Ne-mawashi for the sake of Ne-mawashi like forever.
Gotcha. Interesting. Yes.
Yeah, so um, there's always one side and there's the other side. So they're really good at building relationship. And then when it comes to making decisions, that drive to push through it for the sake of the bigger mission, whether maybe the people that you have been doing Ne-mawashi didn't like it or didn't support it. But at the same time, that for the bigger mission, you have to go through it to get the initiative rolling. That push is the other side of the coin. So Ne-mawashi should be the process of having a buying in and having the grounded as much as possible. At the end of the day, there's got to be an agenda you want to push through at some point. So if there is a point of time that you need to make a decision to go forward, whether all the people like it or not. So that piece tends to be missing from many Japanese leaders going abroad. So they listen and listen and listen to all the people, and then what? And then people are still waiting for you to make decision, and then you go around and then listening. And people start wondering, like, maybe that person is just listening because they don't know what to do. So there will be a different question mark
Interesting.
and trust decreasing because you don't make decisions and push through it. So yeah, leaders a very challenging position because they're balanced between the two, but you need both when it
Mm.
comes to very effective leadership.
And I think one context I like to provide to the guests is I know more of the US context, but so in the US context, it's usually made the department leader, or it could be the chief or executive. They'll consider what the other members have to say, but in some cases, ultimately one person makes the decision. And so I can see like what you described where maybe they focus too much attention on actually not the main decision maker, or maybe they overestimated like the group decision involvement rather than really convincing the main person. And on the other hand, for the Japanese side, I see sometimes foreigners where they ask like, "Can you just introduce me to the CEO?" And I'm like, I actually know the CEO, and they're not going to make a decision.
Hmm.
They'll want it to go through the appropriate, let's say, start at the lowest level, and it
Mhm.
goes up. And by the time it reaches the CEO, everyone has already agreed, and the CEO just stamps their sign of approval. But the reason they stamp the approval is not because the CEO is the champion. It's more like it was already decided internally, and they're just approving because that's actually, let's say, the role of the CEO is the final approval.
Yes, I agree with you.
And so, and I really liked how you really talked about the questions, like the coaching questions. Because sometimes when I'll speak with my clients too, I'll be sometimes surprised, like, how can you not, what is their budget? Like, we don't know. It's like, how can you not know the budget? Or with your champion, at what budget can they make the decision
Mm.
versus where you need a committee to make the decision? And there's just a lot of these questions that if you don't ask, they can kill a deal. And I liked how you talked about also with the questions aspect. I like to think about it as energy, where if people have like a resistance energy, rather
Mhm.
than trying to fight them with a stronger energy, sometimes just letting them dissipate, release the energy is actually the most effective way.
Yes, you're so right about that. And that got me really inspired to talk about how you use your body to deflate the very high energy in the room is very effective. So that's one of the reasons that I'm bringing ontological coaching in a more commercial world, because we touch upon the body, emotions, and language. So body is part of it. So as you said, resistance energy is contractions. They get really contracted, they cross their arms, and
Or
then, people
tightness.
are really tightness in their chest. So the way that you bring your body contracted will increase the contractions in the room and in the room and in the group and conversation as well. So how you expand yourself, learn how to open your chest, and then open your breathing patterns and then expansions, and then from that place, and you ask the questions, like for example, like from a contracted point that you probably can sound like what do you mean by that? And you could say that that's one way to do it, from an expanded, from a more relaxed way of being, and then you can say that, oh, what do you mean by that? And it sounds completely different and creates a different energy. And it deflates the other person who was so contracted and uncrossed their arms. So it's part of the strategies to learn, different ways to get people unhooked from such a bias, a very strong opinion, who can be one-sided, to be more expanded and start exploring with you.
And one thing that I really liked about yourself and also my co-founder and the CEO at OneCoin English was that I think compared to most people, I think you both are much faster for asking someone like, let's just get on a call, let's talk. Whereas my tendency is like, I just want to do email. Like I don't like meetings. I need to avoid meetings at all costs. And so, but it kind of goes back to like what you said. But by going to the call, we can really connect deeper and faster. So that's one thing that stood out for me about the two of you. Because I'll be like, wow, these two love to love to talk.
Yeah. And to be very honest with you, I prefer emails really, Tyson. I am a more email communicator. It's just that, I failed and made mistakes so much in the past with email communication, and then created lots of misunderstanding, and created my own stories bubbling up in my head that creates a villain in my head, that that person is just a vicious being and trying to do wrong things with me, and then it is getting on the call just deflates, and then going through that drama you create as human beings, and it saves lots of energy and time. So that's my learning from lots of mistakes.
And thanks to you and him, I still have a lot to go to improve, but I am much faster to do it. Like, and even my stuff, like, let's get on a call. I'm like, "Ah, I so don't want to do a call, but let's do a call. I know I have to do it.
Yeah.
And my last question for Ne-mawashi is, so I think there will be a subset of users where they have Japanese staff in Japan, but
Hmm.
the Japanese staff aren't too familiar with Ne-mawashi because maybe they haven't worked at a corporation before
Hmm.
and they haven't seen it firsthand. But maybe what are some techniques that you've used or like training to help Japanese teams get better at Ne-mawashi?
Yeah, two things that you can train your people. First of all, ask them first to be the experience of the receiver of the Ne-mawashi first. I think that by experiencing it, they would understand the benefits and then demerits of it as well. So you can just ask them that, what is the best way to work with you most effectively? And someone that who has a Japanese staff or Japanese members in the office, you can ask them that, what is the best way for me to work with you most effectively? And by asking that, they feel really valued as an individual, like, oh, you are interested in knowing more about me rather than my job. So ask that question. And then you could motivate them to ask that question with your customers as well. What is the best way that I can work with you effectively? How can I serve you? So get them trained to ask those questions to the customers, because customers never been asked like that, and they would definitely yes to those questions. They wouldn't really veto saying that I don't want to talk about that. They will definitely talk about that, and then people don't really feel hurt or disgrace or anything like that. They will feel really actually good, positive about being asked like that. So get them the receiver of asking questions like, how can I serve you? The second point is that make sure that you have stakeholders clearly mapped out in what order. So you can sit down with your team, and then with a few clients in mind, make sure that they understand who are the people that they should do Ne-mawashi. So meaning that who are the stakeholders to have a more relationship beforehand, and then have a strategy for each person. Do we reach out to them, hop on the meeting, and then face to face, or virtual is fine? Or this person prefers a data, and then do we have enough data to share with them? Some people would prefer to have the more case studies, like what kind of clients that have we worked with, and then you need to prepare. You could even ask one of your clients to go with you to let them talk about their experience with a new client. So make sure that you have the stakeholders listed up, and what do they want? What are their real concerns? And how can you answer to that? And get a preparation in place and then implement. So these are all part of Ne-mawashi, not just talking to people and then being nice to them. What I'm talking about is a preparation and strategically to have the stakeholders and feel that they're in a good place to make decisions to say yes to your offer.
Awesome. And any final thoughts on Ne-mawashi?
Well, final thoughts. So I get asked about Ne-mawashi by many business people who are very new to Japan. Don't be afraid. This is not something peculiar or anything. It's just a keyword that I guess Japanese people really take it a bit more serious and sincere about building a relationship in business. So don't get so freaked out about this. And with the right preparation, and with the right understanding, and with the right attitude to be the good listener first, to serve your clients, your team, you're going to be just fine.
Yeah. So it sounds, because the way when people bring it up, it sounds like they try to make it sound like a completely foreign concept. And
Mm-hmm.
it's no, you're actually doing elements of it already.
Yes, absolutely.
And so you're not starting from zero.
No, definitely not.
Awesome. And so in the next episode, we'll dive into Hone and Tatemae. And thank you so much, Rina.
Thank you, Tyson.